Hey, I think this might have actually worked. Welcome, everybody. Glad to see people. Yay! Sorry, you just have to figure out YouTube and, make it actually work and click all the buttons. But now that all the buttons are clicked, thank you so much for joining us. I wanted to just thank everybody for your support and for getting the word out. All of you have really been instrumental in telling friends about this and posting about it on social media. I've seen Facebook posts and Tumblr posts and all kinds of things. It's so appreciated, and I'm honestly thrilled and surprised and just full of so much thanks to be hitting the 100,000 mark. So hopefully we can continue this forward. So I'm gonna do my best to actually watch the chat, but like some people in the chat mentioned, this is gonna be my first live stream. So I'm gonna be both watching the game and trying to watch the chat, and let's see if I can hopefully do both of those pretty well. So the first thing that I should mention is, of course, we're going to be playing on Tabletop Simulator, so hopefully nobody was expecting physical cards. The other thing is that all of these cards are based on a prototype, so nothing in here is final. All the cards are still subject to change. We're still doing tiny little tweaks on balancing, and we're going through all of the licensor approval for all the art and everything like that. So just wanted to let people know that this is a prototype. It's close to the final, but it's not necessarily going to be exactly the final. So if I zoom in here, there were a number of places where people could vote on characters that I would be playing tonight, and the runaway leader on that was Ezekiel. So I am unfortunately going to be setting aside all of these other awesome characters, but I am really excited to get a chance to play Ezekiel tonight. He is a really, really fun character to play, kind of a tricky character to play. So really, really excited to get to share his unique playstyle with you. And, of course, we're going to be playing through the introductory scenario tonight, partially because we don't want to spoil all of the other amazing things that this game has to offer. Maybe in the future we can think about something else. The other thing is, I'm not quite sure how much familiarity people have with the game, and so I'm going to kind of talk through how to play the game and the different components of the game as we play. Maybe in future playthroughs we won't go through quite so much detail. But, so like I mentioned, we are going to be playing Ezekiel, and hopefully everybody can get a good shot of his card. There's going to be some important stats on his card on the right-hand side of his card. There's going to be 4 stats with little icons next to them. And the game's always going to refer to these by icons, so you don't have to memorize what they are, but at the top is Guile. Of course, Ezekiel Jones is best at that. Insight, Lore, and Tactics. And the reason I bring this up is that this one Tactics is going to be a major problem for Ezekiel. So, the next thing we have to consider is the actual adventure that we're going to be playing through. So, there's a couple of decks of cards that I've just taken out that are connected to this adventure. And the first one that we want to pay attention to is this setup card, because it's going to not only set the stage for what story we're going to be playing through, but also kind of give us specific setup instructions for this individual mission. So, if we take a look at the bottom of this card, and looks like that's as zoomed in as I can get it, it tells us that the library is a sanctuary where ancient and powerful magical artifacts are kept out of the hands of those who would abuse their power, which is exactly what the Serpent Brotherhood has long sought to do. but now they have broken into the library, and it's up to you to defend it. So it tells us, first of all, to take the first player token, which is this other card that I haven't been paying attention to, and we're going to flip it face down. And that's going to be clear why we're doing that in a little bit, but obviously since I'm playing alone, I'm going to be the first player here. The other thing it tells us is to start the first mission. And sorry, I should be doing a better job looking at the chat. All right, awesome. Anyways, it tells us to start mission 1. So these are missions over here. I'm going to take them and put them right here in front. These are how we're going to win the game. These are like little story beats that we have to complete in order to successfully complete this mission. So our very first mission is to defend the library. And over on the right-hand side of the card, you can see how many tokens we're going to need to put on this card according to how many players there are who are playing. So with just one player, we're going to follow the one dot. I'm going to need to get 3 tokens on there in order to pass through this mission. And I would flip it over, and it would tell me what I need to do next. All right. The other thing we're going to need to pay attention to is the disturbance. All right, so the disturbance is kind of like the mission card for the bad guys. It's what they are attempting to do, and this is our loss condition, right? If we let the bad guys complete all of their story objectives, then we'll lose the game. So once again, up at the top, it gives us some flavor text, helps kind of set the stage. So, the library has called you to serve, and answering that summons has thrust you into a world of magic and mystery. Your job is to protect the innocent by keeping magic out of the hands of those who would misuse it. It's your first day on the job, but before you can even get your desk organized, klaxons blare out. The perimeter alarm has been tripped. This can't be good. All right, and then at the bottom, it's going to tell us how many tokens it's going to take for the bad guys to move through this disturbance. And like I said, if they get through all the disturbance cards, we're going to lose the game. In this introductory scenario, there's only one disturbance card. So if it ever gets those 10 tokens on it, then that's it. We've lost the game. All right, finally, there's one last deck of cards over here. All right, nice little shot of the back door there. But this deck of cards is our adventure deck. And back here with our setup, it told us to search for a card called Relic Looter. And fortunately, searching is one of the things that is really easy to do in Tabletop Simulator. I find most things in Tabletop Simulator are much more difficult to do, but shuffling's easy. So, we were told to go find this enemy, the Relic Looter, and put it into play. So there's a lot of stats on this enemy. We'll come back to those stats and figure those out once it's the appropriate time. But we're just going to put this enemy into play here. And that's all the instructions. So we can set aside this setup card and come back to Ezekiel. He's been waiting too long. It's time. All right, so we're going to start with a hand of 5 cards. And let me try and go through these for you. And let me move my big face out of the way. All right, so we managed to pull Stumpy. So happy to find Stumpy in here. Stumpy is amazing. He can go and fetch you a card, and he can do a lot of other stuff as well. He's an example of a sidekick, and you can only have one sidekick in play at a time. And there's a lot of similarities between sidekicks. I'm just going to actually put Stumpy out here for a second. Between sidekicks and heroes, in that they both have those same 4 stats. So Ezekiel's only going to be able to do one thing on my turn, But if I had Stumpy in play, Stumpy could go do something else. We also have I'm Ezekiel Jones, and that's going to really help us out here. That's going to be an awesome card. And one of the neat things about Ezekiel is that he has these device cards, and this Ace in the Hole is a great example of them. They're cards that come into play with tokens on them, and those tokens get removed once every round, and once you're out of tokens, then you can actually use it for some sort of a benefit. So we're really going to want to find these devices early and get them into play as quickly as we can. So we got Ace in the Hole, got a Magic Spectrometer, got Always Another Way. Alright, so lots of good cards here, and rather than go through them individually, let's go ahead and get started. The last thing you're going to need to do is get energy. So energy is how you pay for cards in this game, and they're represented by cards from the top of your deck. You can see that I'm moving cards from my deck into my energy pile. So if I ever spend energy, they'll go from my energy pile into my discard pile, and if I ever have to gain energy, I'll take them from the deck and put them into the energy pile. So I'm going to start the game with 4 energy, and you can kind of see the little number 4 as I hover my mouse over it. Alright, so the very first phase of the game is going to be the preparation phase. And you can see that this turn order card is an even earlier version of the prototype than the others. So obviously we're not going to be giving you a plain white card. But the preparation phase is where I can play certain types of cards from my hand. So I can play attachments, artifacts, and sidekicks. And if I come back to my hand, these cards with the little chain, the 2 chain links, those are going to be our attachments. And I've already got an example of a sidekick over here. Got the little fedora. And the last type of card I have here is an event. And events are neat because I can play them at pretty much any point in time. So I can hold on to that. I don't have to play it now. So like I said, these devices are really useful, but it takes time to actually get them up and working. So I'm going to play these out early, and I'm going to attach them to Ezekiel. And I like to, Ezekiel's going to have a lot of attachments, so I like to have them kind of close by, but not necessarily overlapping with Ezekiel. And we're told to put a certain number of tokens on these cards. So both of them are going to enter play with 3 tokens. And we've got these little all-purpose special tokens for you that you can use to track things like this. All right. And the Magic Spectrometer up in the upper left, you can see that we have to pay 1 energy to put this card into play. So I'm going to go ahead and spend 1 energy. And nothing for Ace in the Hole. Yeah, there's some good questions about whether this game is available on Tabletop Simulator, and not at present. We're hoping to be able to make at least a more limited version of this available once we have some final cards. The other thing is that we're probably just going to make the very first adventure open for everybody to play, but it's going to give you a taste of the game. But we want to make sure that the rule book is totally finalized and here, so you can learn how to play and things like that. So we're hoping that it's a more limited version of this could be made available. All right, so I can keep playing cards as long as I've got energy. So let me go ahead and bring out Stumpy. All right, everybody loves Stumpy. So Stumpy is going to cost 2 energy in the upper left. All right, so we've got Stumpy here in play, and Stumpy's going to be able to do all kinds of awesome stuff for us. So at this point, I've kind of played through all the cards that I want to play. So we're going to move from the preparation phase to the adventure phase. And this is the first time that I am going to have to draw one of these adventure cards and resolve it. So let me go ahead and make sure this is shuffled up. And I've drawn another enemy. And this is a great time to talk about how enemies work, because this particular enemy tells me that it has ambush. And like it says on the card, ambush says that this enemy comes into play assigned to me. So enemies can exist here in front of a player, and while they're there, they're in striking distance, right? They're trying to attack me and my sidekick. They're not really paying attention to the bigger picture. Whereas enemies that are out here in the middle, like this relic looter, they're really focused on moving the disturbance forward, right? Of trying to complete the game for the bad guys. And so all these enemies that I leave out here are going to be problematic for me, and they're going to add tokens to the disturbance, make me lose faster. But anyways, so this enemy comes right to me, and that's all that happens for right now. Before these enemies attack us, or any bad stuff happens to us, we get to move on to the next phase, which is the action phase. And the action phase is where all the meat of the game is. This is where we actually get to fight back against all of these things that are here. And the most frequent action we're going to do is we're going to try to overcome these things. And the way we overcome is shown in the center bottom of this card. So, for example, let's say that I wanted to try to overcome these serpent ninjas. Well, on the left in the middle, it tells me that I have to use my tactics. That's the little gear symbols in red. So I get to roll white dice equal to my tactics, which Ezekiel does not have many of. And in the little black square, it tells us how many black dice we have to roll. So we'd be rolling 1 white and 1 black. That's not a very good roll, so I don't think Ezekiel's going to actually be doing that. Let's see here. What is Ezekiel going to be doing? So other things that I could possibly go after is the relic looter, who you can see is even harder to defeat. And I could go after defend the library, kind of on the right-hand side of the page. It tells me that I can use my guile, and that's what Ezekiel's good at. But if I let this serpent ninja just hang out there, that could really be problematic for me as well. So, either Stumpy or Ezekiel can take an action, and when they take an action, they just exhaust. They just turn sideways like that. So, Stumpy has his own little action that he can take. It says, action, draw a card. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. Alright, so Stumpy draws me a card. Draws me a attachment, which is really useful, but can't play it now. Can only play it during the next preparation phase. So we're going to hold on to that card. And meanwhile, Ezekiel, I think, is going to go after the mission. So you'll see why in a moment. When I'm going after the mission, it tells me that I have to roll white dice equal to my guile, right? And Ezekiel's got 3 guile, so that's going to be 3 white dice. And it also tells me I need to roll 2 black dice. So I'll go ahead and take 2 black dice. So let's go ahead and roll these and talk through what all the symbols mean. All right, not bad. So we've got these... sorry, here we go. We've got these little metropolitan public library symbols, and these are successes, right? They're the little symbol of the library, and they are counteracted by these little burning books, which are failures, right? So we've got the symbol of the library and burning books. So those two will just cancel each other out. The blink die obviously doesn't mean anything. We'll go ahead and get rid of that. And so I'm left with these. One success, and then there's this symbol, which represents the tree of knowledge, which is, an incredibly important icon to the library, and for those who are familiar with the lore, has some deep lore connections to the library. This symbol doesn't mean anything on its own, but let's come back to Ezekiel. You can see at the bottom of his card, he's got something that he can use that tree of knowledge. He can spend it to activate a little special ability. And that's what we're going to do right now. It says discard a card from your hand to exhaust a non-unique enemy assigned to me. And if they're exhausted, they don't get to attack. So I'm going to go ahead and discard... I'm going to discard Always Another Way. And that allows me to exhaust this enemy. So sure, he's still here ready to punch me, but he's exhausted. He's not going to get a chance to attack this round. So that was the Tree of Knowledge. So I've just used up all of those dice, and we're left with one success, which is great. That's all we needed. The mission here tells us that if the attribute check is successful, which it was, it just succeeded by 1, then we get to add 1 token there. All right. Oh, hello, Mark. So glad you could join us. You're going to watch it tomorrow. Well, excellent. Hope that works out for you, and we'll try to schedule something in the future if this works out well, at a time that works better for people. All right, well, anyways, so I have just added 1 of the 3 tokens that I needed onto the disturbance. So I'm 1/3 of the way. Oh, sorry, the mission. Sorry, the disturbance is the bad thing. So I'm 1/3 of the way through the mission. And at this point, I've taken all of my actions. Stumpy and Ezekiel are both exhausted. So I'll flip this card over, and it's the enemy phase. So enemies who are both assigned and ready attack. So let's imagine that this Serpent Ninja was still up. In the lower right, there's the little crosshairs. That tells us how much damage he's going to do to one of my characters. He could do it to Stumpy or to Ezekiel. So he would just do 3 damage. There's no die rolling, just straight up 3 damage. But he's exhausted, so we don't have to worry about him. And the Relic Looter over here is not assigned to us, so he's not going to attack us. So there's no enemies to attack. Excellent. Next thing is that we check the missions, and we advance any of the missions with enough progress. And we can see that we're only 1 out of 3, so not quite there yet. And then finally, we add progress to the disturbance. So those are going to be these little skull tokens. And in the actual physical version, you've got the book on one side, the skull on the other. But I couldn't figure out how to do that on Tabletop Simulator. So they're different icons here in the digital space. But anyways, I'm always going to add 1 token. But then I have to add extra tokens for all of the cards that are out here that I wasn't able to handle. So that Relic Looter is going to be adding a 2nd token. So at this point, they've got 2... I'll try and space them out a little bit. 2 of their 10 tokens on the disturbance. Right, so I'm 1/5 of the way to losing this. So let's see if I can pick things up in the next round. Finally, we get the refresh phase. And the refresh phase, we're going to ready all the cards in play, including the bad guy cards. And then I get to gain 3 cards that I can take as energy or draw into my hand. And it's my choice. I can do 2 cards into my hand, 1 energy, whatever combination I'm looking for. So I've already got 2 cards that I want to play in my hand that I really like, and I don't have enough energy, so I better gain 1 energy to be able to pay for those cards. And then I'm going to draw a card, see if I can get something better. Ooh, got the Jonesometer. That's a nice card for us. That's going to allow us to change any skill roll that we make, or any attribute check, into a guile check, which is our specialty. So that'll come in handy. And let's gain another energy. So I kind of like all these cards. I kind of want to play all these cards. And then finally, the first player token is going to move to the next player, but in this case, it's just me. So it stays where it is. And we move on to round 2, the preparation phase. So, one last thing I got to do. I got to remember that these devices, tokens come off of them at the end of the round, and that's right now. So at the end of the round, it says remove 1 from each of these. And Ezekiel here is a master of using devices. He gets to pull a second off one of them. So let's go ahead and pull one off the magic spectrometer. All right, so this now has just 1, and there's 2 more on Ace in the Hole. So those will both be ready for us next round. All right, so now it's round 2. Let's get some I'm Ezekiel Jones going on there. And now that you know a little bit more about the game, you can kind of see what this card does. It takes the Tree of Knowledge and allows me to discard a card to turn it into 2 successes. So that's going to be really useful for us coming up. And I'm going to hold off on playing these other... no, I'm not. All right, so let's go ahead and put Sleight of Hand into play. So all these things are attached to Ezekiel, and it enters play with 4 tokens. All right, we'll get all 4 of those on there. And you can see that whenever a token gets removed, I get to draw a card. So that's going to be useful. It's going to be a steady drip of cards that is going to be coming into my hand. And that's good because, as you see, I discard cards to power some of these effects. All right, so let's now move on to the adventure phase. I'm done playing cards, so I'll draw an adventure card. All right, we finally get something different. Save the artifacts. So this is an obstacle. And obstacles are things that you can't solve using your sword. And so these could be social situations. They could be, in this case, like a stealth situation. Could be all kinds of different things. So, hey, you are right. I did add 5 tokens. Keeping me honest. Thank you, sir. So this artifact, save the artifacts. This obstacle is going to enter play unassigned. So all obstacles stay here. It's only enemies that have this weird, sometimes they're assigned to you, sometimes they're not. Obstacles stay in the middle and everyone can go after them. And you can see down at the bottom that it is going to require guile. So that's going to be a useful thing for us to be going after potentially. All right, so that was the adventure phase. Now we come back to actions. And Stumpy's going to do what Stumpy does best, which is go draw me a card. All right, satellite hookup. Pretty nice. Although it's going to take a little while for that to actually come online. And we can now think about what Ezekiel's going to do. So I've got this Jonesometer in my hand, which would allow me to attack this enemy using my guile. And that might be useful just to get him off my back. Save the artifacts is pretty nice because when we defeat it, we get to add a token to the mission, which is pretty tasty. It would be nice to start moving that forward. I think we're going to have a hard time. You know what? Let's try to go for save the artifacts. Let's just see how things work out here. So save the artifacts tells me that I need to roll white dice equal to my guile. So that's going to be 3. And it tells me I need 2 black dice. So got those 2 there. All right, not quite what I was hoping for, but not bad. So we've got these successes and failures that cancel each other out, more successes and failures that cancel each other out, and we're left with 1 success here. So for every success, we're going to get to add 1 token. And you can see on here in the bottom left, it tells me how many tokens I'm going to need. So I only put 1 out of the 3 down. So maybe this was a little bit of hubris on my part, trying to get us through that in 1 action. So we'll see how that all works out. And sadly, what I was hoping is to kind of repeat what we did last time and roll another tree and lock down this enemy. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. So now that I've taken all of my actions, we can move on to the enemy phase. So now I've got an enemy that is both assigned to me and is ready. So he's going to exhaust and deal 3 damage to one of my characters. So I can either put that on Stumpy, who's got 4 life, or I can put it on Ezekiel, who's got only 6. And in this case, I'm going to put all that damage onto poor Stumpy. He is indeed a loyal friend, and he's gonna take a little bit of damage for us. All right, then we check the mission. It's not ready yet, and finally we come to the disturbance, and things are not looking quite as hot as I was hoping for. We're always going to add 1. We're going to add another for the relic looter. And we're going to add another for save the artifacts. Right, so that's 3 that we're going to be adding on here. And let me just stack those on top of each other. So that is 5 out of our 10 on the disturbance. So let's see if we can pull this out. All right. Next up, we've got the refresh phase. We ready all the cards, and we get to draw cards and gain energy to a total of 3. And remember, I'm already going to be drawing some cards over here. So I'm going to start off drawing a card. That could be useful. I'll go ahead and draw a second card and gain an energy. Alright, so at the end of the phase, we're going to start removing tokens. So 1 from each of these is going to get pulled off. And remember, when I take 1 off sleight of hand, I get to draw a card. So I'll go ahead and draw 1 there. Alright. And Ezekiel, so good at devices, he gets to pull an extra token off one of them. Let's go ahead and pull 1 off sleight of hand. All right, we'll just continue to draw those cards. All right, lots of interesting cards in here. We're back to the next preparation phase. So the question is whether any of these are going to be worth playing. I'm actually going to hold off and not play any of these cards. I do have this really nice emergency activation, which is going to let me, at any point in time, play a device from my hand and then remove a bunch of tokens from devices. So that might be a smart play to make. We'll see what happens. So I'm just going to move directly into the adventure phase, and I'm going to draw a card. Wow. All right, I am not getting lucky here. More enemies. There is a third type of card in this deck, right? There actually is something else, which is called a complication. It's like a bad event. But we're not drawing any of those. We're just drawing enemies mostly. This particular enemy is interesting, and this is the last wrinkle about how cards can come into play. This enemy's got Sentinel, and it says that it comes into play guarding a mission. And as long as it's guarding that mission and is ready, I can't add any tokens to it. So that is going to be a potential problem for us. All right, so that was our adventure phase. Lost Ezekiel, and this says, if Magic Spectrometer has no tokens, I can discard it to overcome an obstacle using 3. That means I get to roll 3 dice no matter what, and perhaps more importantly, I get to then ready the character who is taking that action. So this is kind of like a free action. So we're getting a question about when you're getting energy, do you not get to see the card before making the choice? Oh, that's a great question. You have to decide before you see it. Now, if you decide to draw it, you can look at it before you make the decision about the next 2, but you have to decide if it's going to go into the energy or into your hand before you get a chance to look at it. So you make the decision one at a time without looking at the card. Great question. All right, so anyways, we're using the Magic Spectrometer, and we're going after the one and only obstacle that we actually have, save the artifacts. So it tells us that we get to roll 3 dice no matter what, right? So no matter what our skill would be, we get to roll 3, which is not all that special because we already were going to roll 3 anyways. But we still got to roll those 2 black dice. So our Magic Spectrometer is going to try and help us save the artifacts, hopefully. All right, not bad. So we've got ourselves a success and a failure. So those will cancel each other. And we've got ourselves a double success. And so at this point, we've succeeded by 2. And so we're going to get to add 2 tokens on there. So at this point, the Save the Artifacts has 3 tokens on it. And you can see in the bottom left, that's all the tokens that are needed in order to get rid of this. So we've just defeated Save the Artifacts, which is great. Partially because Save the Artifacts told us when this is defeated, add 1 token to the mission. So we're now at 2 out of 3 on the mission. So that's not bad. And remember, the Magic Spectrometer readies us at the end of all that. So basically giving us a free action, which is fantastic. All right. So we've got ourselves a lot of problems out here. So I think it's time to play an event. And remember, events you can play at pretty much any time. I don't think we've played one so far. But these cards with a little hourglass in the middle, you can play them at nearly any time. So this is going to cost us 1 energy to play. And it says you may play a device from your hand, pay its cost as normal. And I am going to play this satellite hookup card. Oop, I'll play it here. And it also costs us 1. So I got to spend 1 for that. And satellite hookup comes into play with 3 tokens. So we're going to drop those on there. And emergency activation then says remove up to 3 tokens from devices you control. So let's just go ahead and pull all of those tokens back off the satellite hookup. So now this is all ready to go. And by the way, you can kind of see on here that this card, the text doesn't actually go with the name of the card. So this is an earlier version of the prototype. Down below, it says if remote detonation, which is the name that this card is supposed to have. So it says if remote detonation has no tokens. So once again, this is a prototype. But if this card has no tokens, discard it to overcome any enemy using 3 dice. And so that's an action. So I'll go ahead and use that action and get to overcome an enemy using 3 dice, even though I would normally only get to roll 1 die. So let's see if we can handle the Serpent Ninja. They seem a little squishier to me. So we'll see if we can finish them off. All right. So we've got a success. Oh, sorry, 2 successes and a failure. So that's going to cancel out one of those successes. So we've got 1. And we've got our Tree of Life, which is going to be extra useful for us. And we also have this blink die. So one of the things we haven't talked about yet, and we haven't had a need to do it yet, is that you can discard a card from your hand to take a die and flip it to a success. So I could flip that to a success, which would be good, but it wouldn't be enough to handle the Serpent Ninjas. You can see in the bottom left, they're going to require 3 damage. So I don't think I'm going to do that. I think I'm instead going to spend the Tree of Life result on Ezekiel Jones here. All right, he says, I'm Ezekiel Jones. I can exhaust it from my hand, exhaust it and discard a card from my hand to treat that as 2 successes. All right, so I'll go ahead and flip this to the double success. Right, so at this point, I've got 4 successes, 1 failure, so I'm up by 3. I'm going to do 3 damage to the Serpent Ninja. That's all the damage he can take, so he is defeated. And the best part about this is if we come back to the mission, it says when an enemy is defeated, add 1 token to the mission. So that's going to be 1 more on here. This has been an excellent turn for us. Ezekiel likes to bide his time and then combo out. So, point is, we now have all 3 tokens on the mission, but it doesn't advance yet. It advances in the next phase. So we got to keep going. And our little remote detonation said, then ready this character. All right, so you can see Ezekiel's just taking an absurd number of actions this round. He's already taken 2. He's got 1 more up his sleeve. Let's see here. What is he going to do? We've got the Brotherhood Bruiser, who is going to take a lot of tactics, so that's probably not a good choice. Relic Looter, probably not a good choice. And then finally defend the library, but all we would do is put an extra token on there. So that's probably not a good choice either. There's 2 default actions you can always take if you've got nothing better to do. And one of those is to meditate. So I'm going to do that. And meditation gains me 1 energy, but discards a card from the top of my deck. And it's going to make sense in a little bit why that's going to be significant. All right, and then we got Stumpy here. Let's see here. So I think Stumpy's just going to do his normal action to draw me a card. Ooh, that's fun, but expensive. All right, so at this point, I've finally taken all my actions. did all that comboing out. And we move on to the enemy phase. So this enemy we weren't able to exhaust. It's going to attack us for 3 damage. And I have to assign all of it to one character. So I'm going to assign all of it to poor Stumpy here. Stumpy has been a loyal companion and friend to us, but he's going to take 3 more damage and is going to be defeated. But you never know when Stumpy might come back. So we'll see about that. And he absorbed a huge amount of damage for us. So R.I.P. Stumpy. So that was the enemy. And now we'll get to come to the mission. And for the first time, we finally have enough. I know, no Stumpy. Oh. Alright, but we finally have enough tokens on Defend the Library, so I'm going to flip it over. While you have managed to drive the serpents out of your immediate vicinity, their numbers seem endless. Everywhere you go, you find more armed men packing up precious magical artifacts. It is clear you can't win this fight, but maybe you can stop the Brotherhood from gaining control of the entire library. And it tells us to start Mission 2, which is this mission. We'll come back to it in a second. Flip the first player token face up. So we got to come back to this first player token to flip it up and reveal Jenkins. So Jenkins is the first player token. You get to control him as he is back at the library, helping you out, sending you good pieces of advice. And you can see that he's got some awesome stats, right? 3s and everything. And that's going to be an extra action that the first player is going to be able to take on their turn. Now, I should say that we've got some different difficulty modes that swap out Jenkins for different characters that either make this token more powerful or kind of less powerful. So that's one of the ways the game handles difficulty modes. So anyways, we just unlocked Jenkins, which is awesome. It's going to help us out. And we have to search the adventure deck and discard pile for one obstacle and put it into play exhausted and guarding Mission 2. Alright, so let's search here. And I'm just going to pull out the different obstacles that we could encounter. We could go get an unstable artifact. That might not be too bad. We could do another save the artifacts. And finally we could do a how large is this place? So the question is what I'm going to be best at handling. You can see kind of in the lower left how many tokens it's going to need. And then the other piece of information is in the bottom center, how many dice I'm going to be rolling. So I kind of have to balance all that stuff. So I think it wouldn't be my usual choice, but I think I'm going to take the unstable artifact. So we're going to put those back in there. If I can. There we are. And shuffle that back up. Alright, and it says put them into play exhausted and guarding Mission 2. Alright, so now we're going to get rid of this mission card that we just completed. And as exciting as that was, we also have to remember to always take care of the disturbance. So the disturbance always gets 1 every turn. And I've got that darn relic looter that's just been hanging out there. So that's going to be another 1. Oof. Alright, we're at 7 out of 10. We'll see how this goes. And that is the end of the enemy phase, right? We did the enemies, the mission, the disturbance. Alright, refresh phase. We ready everything, including these bad guy cards. We get our 3 cards. I'm going to start off drawing. Ooh, that could be tasty. Let's go ahead and draw one more and gain one energy. Ah, misdirection. All right, that might be useful for us later on. All right, so finally we're at the end of the round, and so we're going to start pulling these tokens off, one off of each of them. And of course, when something comes off sleight of hand, I get to draw a card. And Ezekiel's so good at stuff, he gets to pull one more off. So I'll draw one more card. And if sleight of hand has no tokens, discard it. So it's gone now. But hey, it drew me 4 cards over the course of 2 turns. So I'm pretty pleased with the massive fistful of cards that I have. For those interested, there's no hand limit. The problem is that the more cards you have in your hand, well, you'll see momentarily, when I shuffle my deck, I'm not going to have very many cards left in there. And the more I shuffle the deck, the worse things are going to get for me. So we'll come back to that next turn when I inevitably have to shuffle. All right, so let's think about some things in here. We're definitely going to have to deal with some enemies. So having that remote detonation might be good. And might as well play an ace in the hole, right? It's free, and it might do neat things for me later on. So both of those cards are going to come into play with 3 tokens. Yep, 3 and 3. Good. So I've got some more devices that are clicking down and will hopefully help me soon. All right, all the rest of these I think I'm just going to hold on to. All right, so adventure phase. Oh my goodness. All right, we got our cult fanatic here. And the cult fanatic explains to us how enemies usually come into play. So this says, enemies enter play assigned to you unless you already have an enemy assigned to you, in which case they enter play unassigned. So he's going to just hang out here. But when he enters play, he brings a friend with him. All right. How large is this place? So this is going to make our lives a little interesting. There's one symbol on the black dice that we haven't rolled yet. It's this little serpent icon. And that serpent icon is a failure, and on top of that, it activates some little special bad power on the disturbance. So you can see here that for the intro scenario, there is no extra bad thing. But as long as this card is in play, it says that when you roll that symbol, you have to add 1 skull token to the disturbance. It's going to make us lose even faster. All right, things not looking so hot for us. All right, so action phase. The very first thing that I think we need to do is get rid of this, because otherwise all of our black dice could add more tokens to the disturbance, and we can't afford to add any more tokens. So Jenkins is going to go handle that. Give a quick phone call to Jenkins. You can see that he's got 3 insight. That's what's needed, the little 3 ring icons. So he's going to roll 3 white dice and no black dice. So that's nice. All right, 1, 2, 3 successes. So we would put 3 tokens on this, and 3's all it needs. So Jenkins helps us out and explains how large the library is to us. So that is that. All right, and once again, Ezekiel is in a desperate situation. So I think it's time for him to really go to town on some of these enemies. So I'm going to assign 1 enemy to me, because you can do that for free on your turn during the action phase. Take 1 unassigned enemy and assign them to yourself. And then I'm going to play Cunning Ambush. Now this costs me 3, and I don't have 3 energy, but I do have Ace in the Hole. And it says if it has no tokens, I can discard it to reduce the cost of the next card that I play by 3. So the Ace in the Hole pays for the Cunning Ambush. Alright, so the Cunning Ambush is an action. So this has got to be something that Ezekiel's going to do. And it says I may assign any enemy to myself. So I'm going to snag this last enemy and assign it to me. And then separately overcome up to 3 enemies using Guile instead of the normal tactics that I would need to, which is awesome. And each of those checks gains that I can spend the tree to exhaust the enemy I'm currently attacking. So once again, we're going to try and combo out here and see if we can handle some of these bad boys. And let's go ahead and start from left to right. We got our Brotherhood Bruiser. So Brotherhood Bruiser says 3 black dice. And of course, Cunning Ambush is going to give me my Guile, which is 3 in white dice. So let's see what we get. All right, not bad. So we've got those 2 successes that cancel these 2 failures. And then this one's a little harder to see, but it's a success in the hexagon and a tree in the circle, and 1 other success. So I've got 2 successes, and I've got 1 tree. So 2 successes would put on 2 damage, so that's going to be enough to finish him. I'm going to spend the tree on Ezekiel's normal ability, which is to discard a card from my hand. And yeah, let's go ahead and get rid of the hardwired access to exhaust an enemy assigned to me. And I'm going to exhaust this one because he's tough enough. I'm not confident that I'll actually be able to defeat him with 1 attack. But we've got 2 successes here that aren't canceled out, so that's 2 damage to this Brotherhood Bruiser, and he is defeated. Oh, hey, sorry, I just realized I never actually read the flavor text on our next mission. We should probably do that. So this next mission, what we're doing right now is to cut the anchor chain. Your only option is a terrible one. Seal away the library by cutting the chain that anchors it to this reality. So that's what we're trying to do, but we're beating up these enemies in the meantime. And you can see that I need 2 tokens on there, and the only way for me to add tokens is to make this lore check. Alright, so remember the Cunning Ambush allows me to attack up to 3 enemies. So we're going to do the Cult Fanatic next. So that's 3 white dice, and he's got no black dice. So this should be good. Alright, well, not great, but 2 successes. That would do 2 damage, and that's all the life that he's got. So that guy is also defeated. And finally, we'll come to Relic Looter. And Relic Looter's got 2 black dice. So 2 black, 3 white. Oh, Ezekiel, you were rolling so well. When the chips are down, things are working out for you. Okay, so those 2 are going to cancel each other. Got 2 successes. That would be 2 damage. And I've got a tree. Well, I'm going to go ahead and use I'm Ezekiel Jones. It says exhaust it and discard a card from my hand to gain 2 successes. So let's take out Electromagnet. All right, so that's going to flip this to a double success. There we are. So that's 4 successes, 4 damage. Well, that's all this poor Relic Looter has. So we're going to finish off this Relic Looter. Now, the one thing that is maybe short-sighted of me, because I really did not think we were going to be able to handle the Relic Looter in one go, was that it says, when defeated, add a token to the mission. But the mission is currently being guarded by a ready obstacle. And so as long as that obstacle is ready and is guarding, I can't add any tokens there. So I just wasted that token, unfortunately. And if I had thought ahead, I might have been able to plan that out a little better. But like I said, I really did not think we were going to defeat that guy in one round. Yeah, Ezekiel just took out all 3 enemies. Nicely done, Ezekiel. All right. So the last thing we got to consider is this unstable artifact. Because, as you can see in the lower right, it's going to add 2 Doom tokens, or 2 tokens to the disturbance. And that combined with the 1 that we have to add every round is going to make us lose. Well, I don't want to lose quite yet. So I'm going to play Misdirection that says either exhaust a non-unique enemy, which there are none, exhaust a non-unique obstacle. That's the one we're going to do. So we're going to pay 1, and we're going to exhaust this. And the reason why is exhausted cards don't contribute to the disturbance. Now, the other thing is exhausted cards don't guard missions anymore. So if I had been smarter and I had played that before, we could have just gotten a token on there. But we'll just play it using that little mistake that I just made. That might cost us the game. We'll see. We had a couple of really rough rounds at the beginning. So that was the action phase. So we come to the enemy phase. There are no enemies. Ezekiel has rid the board of them. The mission's not ready to advance yet. And then finally, we're going to add tokens to the disturbance. So disturbance is always going to get 1. And it would get extra for the unstable artifact. But it's exhausted, so doesn't count. Don't have to do anything with it. All right. Yeah, I love the amount of player choice in this game, too. There's a lot of little fiddly bits, but Ezekiel is one of the fiddliest characters. He's got a lot of moving pieces to him. I think about him as the combo player. So a lot of the other characters play a little more simply. Well, a little more straightforward is probably the better way to phrase it. But there's already some videos out from One Stop Co-op Shop where you can look at Eve and Jacob and how they played the scenario. So yeah, you're seeing probably the most complicated hero to play. But yeah, I love the player choice as well. All right, so refresh phase. We ready all the cards. Yeah, the One Stop Co-op Shop is their video is great, and their whole podcast and everything they do is amazing. Love those guys. All right, so we just did the refresh phase. Got to draw some cards and get some energy. All right, so we got a new possible sidekick in our hand, and now our deck is empty. So what we need to do is flip over our normal deck and bring it over and shuffle it. And I'm going to complete my action. I'm going to finish drawing my 3 cards. But then I have to pay a cost to shuffle the deck, which is that I'm going to have to draw another adventure card. And you have to do that every time you shuffle your deck. So the faster you go through your deck, the more attention you draw to yourself. So that was 1 card. Let me give myself 2. And yeah, 3. All right. So end of the round. get to pull some of these tokens off. And I guess we're probably going to want remote detonation more than ace in the hole. So I'll go ahead and pull the extra token off remote detonation. So decks are currently this deck is 28 cards, and you can have the deck up to 30 cards, but no larger than that, unless, currently no larger than that. There might be a hero in the future who we let have a larger deck size. But the idea for deck construction is you see all these cards at the bottom tell you what discipline they're part of. That's this Ezekiel Jones at the bottom, or trickery, or gadgetry. And so the way you build your deck is you have to take one of these disciplines. And I suppose I should say a discipline is a group of 7 connected cards. So there are 7 Ezekiel Jones cards. So you got to take all 7 of them in your deck if you're playing Ezekiel. And of course, nobody else can take those special Ezekiel cards. And then you're going to pick 3 other disciplines, each of which have 7 cards associated with them. So that means you've got 4 sets of 7 cards, or 28 cards. The last 2 slots get to be filled with cards that you unlock. And you unlock them by completing missions. So after, or I should say completing adventures. So assuming we win this thing, we're going to get to unlock some cards to be the 29th and 30th card in our deck. So that was probably more information than you wanted to know about deck construction, but that's how it works in the game right now. All right, so let's see here. We just finished the refresh phase, so we're back to preparation phase. Oh, I'm sorry. Right, I shuffled my deck. I've got to draw one of these cards. Oh my goodness. All right, save the artifacts. All right, this isn't terrible, but it would have been awfully nice to be drawing some complications. They are in there, I swear. They just got all shuffled to the bottom. Complications are nice because they come out, they're bad for you, but they go away. You don't have to spend actions to get rid of them. Alright, so now I'm done with my turn. And so now it's the preparation phase. Alright. So I'm just just trying to think through what I want to do. So could play the Tech Wizard, which is a really nice but kind of tricky character who right now is not going to be super useful to us, but might be next turn. Or I can save it for the Jonesometer, which gives me a lot of flexibility in how I handle things. So I'm kind of tempted to stick with not playing anything so I have enough energy for the Jonesometer. So we'll see how that works out. So I'm going to move right to the adventure phase. Hey, look, I told you there were complications in this deck. So the little exclamation mark is a complication. So it says your hero must immediately make this attribute check. So it says it wants insight. So Ezekiel's insight is 2. So we're going to go ahead and get those 2. And it tells us we have to roll 4 black dice. So this is probably not going to go well for us. And we have to ignore the Tree of Life. Or sorry, the Tree of Knowledge results. For each point the check is failed by, discard the top 3 cards of your deck. So that's going to make you run through your deck faster, make you draw more adventure cards. So let's see what happens. Hey, this is not bad. All right, Ezekiel rolls well when the chips are down, I guess. So I've got 2 successes and 2 failures, so those cancel each other out. I've still failed the check, but I failed by 0, and so nothing's going to happen here. That card is totally dealt with. All right, hopefully we get a couple more complications here. All right. So we need to take out both of these cards to not lose. Let's start with the unstable artifact. Let's go ahead and have Jenkins handle that for us. He's got 3 lore, and the unstable artifact only is rolling 1 black die. So I'm liking Jenkins' odds. Hey, not bad. So success and failure cancel each other out. We're left with a success and a tree of knowledge. Yep, better to be lucky than lucky to be smart. Nice. The tree of knowledge, if we come back over here, is a really useful ability. It's just not going to be useful in this context for Jenkins. It says exhaust the artifact or the enemy or obstacle you're currently going after. Well, we're about to defeat it, so that's not going to matter. So we have beaten it by 2. We would add 2 tokens on. That's all the tokens it needs, so it's gone. Alright, so it's all down to Ezekiel, who's been rolling amazingly. Let's see what he can do. Because if he can get through this, then I won't lose. But if he doesn't get through, then I will lose. And I don't like losing. So let's see what we can do. So we've got 3 white dice and 2 black dice. So let's go ahead and roll this. Okay, so not quite what I was hoping for, but let's discard a card from our hand to flip one of these. Now you can only do that once per roll per player, so I can't keep chucking more and more cards. That's the one and only one that I get to chuck. We finally rolled ourselves the special bad symbol, and remember that's a failure plus something else bad, but that extra bad thing is no extra bad thing. So those 2 are going to cancel out these 2 successes, and we're going to be left with 1 tree of life. Tree of knowledge. The tree of life just rolls off the tongue so well. And I'm going to go ahead and use I'm Ezekiel Jones. It's another card. So that is going to turn into 2 successes. So that's going to be 2 on here. But unfortunately, that was only 2 of the 3 that we need, so we didn't quite get through this. So what that's going to mean is in the next phase, right, because I just took my action, we're going to add 1 token to the disturbance, right, because we add 1 every round, and this save the artifacts is going to add a 2nd. So we have just added all 10 on here. And unfortunately, that is where we're going to lose the game. Let's go ahead and flip this over. You were outnumbered and outgunned. It was only a matter of time before the Serpent Brotherhood was able to capture you, and now nothing stands between them and total control over the library. You shudder to think of the evil they might do with access to the world's greatest collection of magical artifacts. So, not quite the way I was intending on ending my first game here, but we had a couple of really nasty rounds at the beginning, and we just kept drawing nothing but enemies and obstacles, right? Most of the rest of this deck is going to be disturbances, and each of those disturbances is great because, like I said, you don't have to keep spending actions to handle them. So I think we came relatively close. We were about to get through this last mission here, and there is 1 more mission after that, but it's really, really quick. It usually only takes 1 round to get through. So yeah, unfortunately, we didn't make it through this one successfully, but who knows? Maybe next time we'll be a little more fortunate. So that is where the game ends. But if people have any questions, I can stick around for a few minutes and answer those, and then otherwise we'll close down the stream for the night. If people enjoyed this, obviously it's going to be put up on YouTube for people to watch later on. But if people enjoyed this, we can think about another stream next weekend, maybe at a slightly earlier time for people in UK or European time zones. I know we've got several really excited people from the UK who desperately wanted to be here but weren't able to. So maybe we'll try again next weekend, and we'll try with another vote and see who people want to see played in the next round. So I don't see any questions on here. So I think that is where we will end things for the night. It's been delightful to get a chance to hang out with you. Sorry that I wasn't as attentive as I could have been to the stream or the comments that you've been giving. We got a couple of quick questions right before we close up. So how many sets of 7, the disciplines, would you say there are to choose from when building your deck? It's a great question. So in the core box, each of the 4 characters has their own unique discipline, right? So you can't really use those to deck build for other characters, as in Ezekiel's cards can't go into Jacob's deck. But each of the characters has 3 disciplines that could go into anybody's deck. So that means the core box has 12 disciplines that you can mix and match. And you can actually find a lot of really fun combos by doing that, right? Taking some cards out of Jacob's deck and putting them into Eve's deck or something like that. You can also try to cover up weaknesses, right? Like Ezekiel really struggles with punching, right? We managed to pull off a couple of amazing combos, but that's one of his weaknesses. So you might take some cards that are more fighting oriented to try to mitigate that weakness. So like I said, 12 in the base box. The Jenkins expansion comes with 3 new ones, right? So that's up to 15. And then for the first movie box, there's 3 more for Flynn and 1 more for Nicole. So that's what? 3 times 6, 18 plus 1. So it sounds like there are 19. Yeah, so 19 disciplines that you can mix and match, and that's on top of each character getting their own unique discipline. So that would be up to 26 total disciplines, 19 of which you can mix and match. So yeah, lots of deck building opportunities there. The one thing I suppose I should do before I leave is point out that had we won, we would have been able to unlock some cards. So the very last mission would tell us to unlock Mr. Flynn Carson himself here, and this could be the 29th or 30th card from my decks moving forward because I've unlocked it. Alright, so I think it's appropriate for us to end on Flynn and his amazing bubble pipe. And thank you again for hanging out with me tonight, and hopefully we can play again in the future, and hopefully we can actually win the first scenario. So thanks again, and hope you all have a fantastic evening. Feel free to ask any questions you might have on the Kickstarter page. I try to pay attention to the comments there, and hopefully